Welcome to Real Estate AI Flash, the show where AI goes from hype to habit. I'm your host, Rajeev Sajja. Each week, we make AI approachable and actionable for real estate professionals who want to stay ahead of the curve. From lead generation to listing presentations, from marketing strategy to client experience, you'll hear how top agents and industry leaders are using AI to work smarter, save time, and grow their business. So whether you're just getting started or already experimenting with AI tools, this podcast gives you ideas you can use right now. Now let's get to this week's special guest. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash, and today we have a legend, folks. We have Allan Dalton, former CEO of Realtor.com, a former executive at multiple national brands, and the co-owner and president of a 60-office real estate brokerage that he sold. He is the author of 5 books, and his most 2 recent books are Buyer Agent Beware, Be Aware, and his most recent book is Agent to AIgent, which dives into how AI is reshaping the real estate industry. And for the sports fans listening, Allan was once drafted with the Boston Celtics. So yes, his career path has always been unconventional. Allan has consistently shown the rare ability to see where the industry is headed before most people even recognize the shift. I'm excited to have him here today. Welcome to the show, Allan.
Thank you, Rajeev, and it's a real privilege to be with you. And I want to say at the outset how much I admire what you are doing. In my book, I reference you, and you helped me with the book. You gave me a lot of guidance, and I reference you in your chapter as real estate's Mr. AI, and I don't think that's an overstatement at all. In fact, what I like the fact is how you're helping the entire industry now, because I think that's important, because it's like you'll hear people say, well, what would unite the world? Well, if we were attacked from an invader from space. Well, we're not being invaded by AI, but AI has potential to either disrupt or enhance the industry. And I think that if the industry writ large doesn't make right decisions like it did with the internet and the like, it's going to be in trouble. So having somebody like you that transcends any brokerages or brands, I think is invaluable to the industry. And it's a privilege to be with you on your platform today.
Thank you, Allan. I appreciate the kind words. This podcast is not about me. It is about you. So you're the special guest today. So, before we dive into how AI is changing the role of a real estate agent, which is what I want to kind of dig into with you, what was your first light bulb moment with AI?
The first light bulb moment for me is that beginning to understand it took me back to my days as CEO of Realtor.com. And it reminded me that once again, we're at an inflection point. We're at the crossroads of this incredible technologically centric juggernaut that has the potential to either disrupt or to enhance the real estate industry. So it presents both a great challenge as well as an opportunity. And then the light became blindingly bright later on, when I started doing my research for my book, Agent to AIgent, when I started prompting ChatGPT in particular, asking how are other professionals using AI compared to real estate, and the contrast was stark and very revealing. If people can understand me saying stark with my Boston accent. And specifically, I think it's safe to say that over the last 10 or 15 years, you've had an increasing number of real estate professionals proclaiming to be trusted real estate advisors. Now, I actually own the URL, Real Estate Trusted Advisor, but that tells me that the professionals that real estate agents aspire to evolve to be are more relational and advisory, and as well as psychologists, for example, who are very relational. So I asked AI, how are real estate agents using AI versus like financial advisors, financial planners, and psychologists? And it came out and said very, very differently that these other professionals were using it more to serve their clients, was most of real estate's prompts and usage was how-tos, how to be more efficient, how to delegate tasks. In fact, I asked AI, even today getting ready for this, what right now are the 5 greatest usages of AI, and one was marketing and lead gen, two was marketing and property analysis, number three was transactional efficiency, number four was client communication, and number five was personalized recommendations. And then I asked, how should real estate professionals use AI in terms of remaining relevant in the world of AI and the information age? And the five suggestions were: number one, to adopt a consultative mindset. Mm-hmm. Number two, to engage clients off market, because 13.2% the last time I checked of homeowners are remaining in their home. Homeowners are remaining in their home for 13.2 years. Was in 2008, it was 6 years. Number three, to leverage AI strategically for consultations. Number four, to develop expertise. And five, to communicate higher value. And so that inspired me to write the book. And I went on to ask AI, if agents don't use AI to conduct in-home consultations, what would be the consequences? And in 7 seconds or so, it came back: they risk being irrelevant. Failure to leverage AI for meaningful, strategic client engagement will reduce long-term viability and could make traditional, purely transactional agents obsolete. So that was when the second light bulb went off. So Rajeev, you know this. I probably know 1%, and I don't mean this to be diplomatic, but I'm being literal. I probably know 1% as much in terms of how to use AI as you do and what you teach. I'm a one-trick pony. I spend 5 or 6 hours a day over the last 18 months researching how agents can use AI to do in-home consultations, okay? Yep. So they evolve from using AI to be better doers, but to become better thinkers.
100%.
And then by become better thinkers, they'll inevitably become better doers. So those are the two areas that the light bulb shone the brightest, is that how are we using it versus our contemporaries? And number two, what will happen if we use this primarily to help us and not to help our clients?
Yeah. No, we'll dig into this. This is exactly where I wanted our conversation to go. You'd be interested in this. I don't know if you saw this survey. I think it's a Realtor.com survey. And we'll try to find the link to it and put it in the show notes. But the numbers are accurate. So it was a consumer survey, Allan, that basically Realtor.com did, asking consumers who is their primary source for real estate market information. That was the question. And 62% said their real estate agent. Okay, so that's a good number for now. However, a close second at 61% said they use AI to get this information. Now, my point of that is to follow up with a question for you is, consumers are already using AI, good or bad, hallucinations or not. That ship has sort of sailed because of where ChatGPT is and all of those things. So how does the agent role evolve to continue to be the source or market expert? Let's dig into that in terms of the age of consumers using AI. How does the agent role change? Let's dig into that a little bit.
Well, that's a great question and very thought-provoking. And my first response to your very provocative question goes back to when I was CEO of Realtor.com, because I actually commissioned a study. I paid $150,000 to McGill University researchers to basically determine where homeowners go for real estate information when they're not in the market for advice. And realtors came in third at that point in time. So using that information, I went to AI and I asked AI, number one, what will happen if real estate agents don't use AI to do in-home consultation? It said they won't survive. And number two, I said, if realtors don't use it for in-home consultations, where will they rank? And they said they will drop to number 5. I then asked, and it's in my book, I just cut and paste, what will happen? Now, of course, AI can be very obsequious and basically provide what they think you want to hear. But I had other people go on their platforms that didn't have the stream of relationship that I had. And then I asked, where will real estate professionals rank for the where to get information if they use AI to do in-home consultations? They said they will become number one. It's in the book, okay? And here's why. Because 84% of consumers right now are using AI for real estate information. So for the first time in history, we have both professionals and the public going to the same identical resource for information. Something has to give. That tells you that when the public is going to the same source, not only for information, but for advice, ultimately AI will no longer need realtors for advice. They'll need them to interpret advice. They'll need them to personalize advice and to contextualize it. So when context begins, that's when consulting begins. And so the real estate agents will have to basically create relationships, because here's what's happening in the industry right now. First of all, increasingly, buyers are going directly to listing agents. Now, because of that, people in the industry who only play checkers, they arrive at this conclusion. Well, if buyers are going directly to the listing agents, then that just makes listings all the more the name of the game. That's a checkers player. The chess player understands that the more that buyers basically circumvent and erode buyer agent value, it won't take long for sellers to conclude, wait a minute, if the buyer doesn't need representation, then why are we paying for representation? Because once you erode either side of the symmetry, you're not left with asymmetrical value. You're left with no value. If there's not a strong defendant, you don't need a plaintiff's attorney. If there's not a plaintiff, you love sports, your two kids went to Penn State, they haven't had a great season, but they started at number one. If you don't have a strong offense, you don't need a strong defense. And so what this means is this: relationships have to be formed before consumers have transactional needs. And it can't just be because people are sending information or data or having client appreciation parties. They've got to stop saying what I've been saying against for 20 years. They've got to stop saying my past clients, because that means they're a past agent. And they've got to get into the home, sit with people, and basically create the relationship. In fact, the way I also see this is differently from my days at CORealtor.com. A lot of people conflate the internet with the web. The internet preceded the web by many years. The internet was the infrastructure, the hardware. The web was the content. And Web 2.0 allowed for the democratization of information, the sharing of information and data. But what's different is that AI is sharing, that was humans sharing information, interacting with each other. AI is sharing AI knowledge of the whole world. It's sharing wisdom, it's sharing reasoning, critical thinking. And so if realtors don't become an AIgent, if they don't use AI to empower them to sit down in the home with people, to go over home improvement, home savings, home maintenance, real estate planning, and so forth, home equity reviews, then the public will be going to the same source for real estate information, and it's not going to be pretty. And so again, that's why I'm a one-trick pony. It comes back to using AI as a thought partner and not as a tool.
Yeah,
not just as a tool.
One of the books that I've really has been an unlock for me last year was AI-Driven Leader by Jeff Wood. And there's several good books on AI. And what it unlocked for me was the human is the thought leader, AI is your thought partner. And
Exactly.
I think when all of us sort of start the journey of AI, we're using it to replace Google. But if you can use it to amplify your intelligence to better serve your clients, I think you're elevating the experience. And if you can elevate your client experience, you'll always win. And I think that's some good takeaways there for the agent. I want to double down a little bit on the teams as well, Allan. Where do you see, I know the teams are becoming a big thing and really it's not slowing down. How do teams sort of win in the age of AI? Is there anything there that you want to double down on beyond what you just shared?
Yes. First of all, we're coming out. We'll talk about our course, our certification course. But in the
Yeah.
book, I'm writing with the great Anthony Lamacchia on the rise of the certified real estate consultant. I talk about the three-dimensional real estate team. Now, obviously, I love the acronym Together, Everyone Achieves More. But it's got to be where the public achieves more as well. And so
Yeah.
the three-dimensional team in the world of AI would work as this. So first of all, the internal team must take on more of the responsibility of measuring success based upon relationships, in-home consultations, as opposed to just having on their board number of listings and number of sales. Okay, and so what they have to do is that they have to share information and do case studies in terms of how they're helping people when they're not in the market, home savings, home discounts, real estate ecosystems. So they first share that knowledge. Now, the real estate teams are the best suited to assimilate this discipline because they have a higher level of intimacy and collaboration themselves. So it means that the team has to be more collaborative and more consultative with one another in terms of how they're going to consult with the consumer. The second level team, Rajeev, is what I call the dyad team. Now, my daughter's a clinical psychologist, went to Princeton, so forth and so on, and she says, Dad, we talk in psychology dyads. It's the relationship between the therapist and the client. So the internal team prepares every team member to then form a different level of team. They become teammates with their clients. Now, somebody may think, well, we've always done this. We haven't. If we had always done this, Rajeev, there wouldn't be something that we know that's called the real estate loyalty gap. We wouldn't have the fact that NAR says that 90% of people are going to go back to the realtor because they were happy with the transaction, but less than 12% do. So that tells us, number one, we have never established dyad teams, okay? If we had, we wouldn't have popularized the term my past clients. So the second dimension is the dyad team. The third dimension is the real estate ecosystem team. Because you can't sustain a relationship over 10 or 12 years with pumpkins and calendars and just listed cards and acknowledgments of your awards. You're going to have to bring substantive value, and you can't bring substantive value if you're not a conduit to home service providers, okay?
Yeah.
And so therefore that means that there's the third team, but they're all basically symbiotic, because if you don't begin with creating this consultative culture within the internal team, you're not going to develop dyad teams between the agent and the client, where the agent is that team leader. And therefore, that team will not survive unless you create a real estate ecosystem team. And so they're all symbiotic. So that's what we talk about, is creating, that's in the book, creating three-dimensional real estate teams that is driven by AI, and that basically elevates the value pyramid for agents and teams from data and information to knowledge and wisdom, which is only possible by using AI properly.
Yeah, and that also addresses what you talk about, the loyalty gap. So if you have systems
Exactly.
in place, the right teams around you, it sort of bridges the loyalty gap powered by AI. So this is such good stuff, such good stuff. Can you double down a little bit on the certified real estate consultant course? Is this the genesis of that course?
Yes.
Why did you and Anthony decide to do this now? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, first of all, as you know my background, many years ago I introduced to the industry the concept of real estate planning.
Yeah.
And we have some companies doing my idea real estate planning month. And my first iteration was the real estate financial planning system. And then for a number, and as you know, I've been an executive with Better Homes and Gardens, Coldwell Banker, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Century 21, Sotheby's. I was the president of a Sotheby's company. So I'm basically focused on the industry. I'm not with any company, any brand, and this is just generic. And so,
Yeah.
so I basically asked myself when I did that concept, what percentage of people at some time in their life regret not owning enough real estate? Almost everybody. Well, what percentage have ever created a real estate plan or had their agent influence them to create a real estate plan? Next to no one. And so, and I looked at other industries years ago. Well, the life insurance industry, they only survived because they became financial planners. So I basically predicted at some point in time in my life, or maybe after my life, this metamorphosis where real estate agents will do the same thing as life insurance agents because there wasn't enough value in a transaction. So they had to take a holistic gestalt approach to planning. But then that isn't enough because that's too narrow. In fact, AI told me that's too narrow. So I thought, you know what? We have to have that as a subset of consulting. And then I said, well, okay, so we'll use AI to power this, and for the reason. Anthony Lamacchia was the #1 transactional agent in the entire state of Massachusetts. And he's built a company well over $3 billion from start in 6 states. So I figured, you know what? That would be the perfect blend of a much younger person who's a transactional rock star, who's very involved in brokerage, who's the liaison for NAR for the brokerage community, and an old timer like myself who has spent his life doing strategic thinking, creating national systems for companies, turning around Realtor.com when I did. And so we have got together and we've created, we're coming out with the book. It should be out when this is revealed, The Rise of the Certified Consultant, a network and an online certification course, because this has to be very comprehensive. It just can't be semantic. So I'm going to call myself a certified real estate planner. Now I own the URL, certified real estate trusted advisor. Why didn't I go in that direction? Because first of all, have you ever heard somebody say, "Hi, I'm a trusted accountant"? Has anybody advertised, we're your trusted attorneys? Because that, and AI acknowledges this, it only creates mistrust. And so the perfect description for what real estate agents will have to do when people are off the market, they're going to have to consult with them, because that's more collaborative than an advisor. An advisor basically advises, gives opinions. A consultant comes in and it's more lateral. It's more equal with the client, and it's establishing that relationship. And so, but here's the irony. Even though those you would think would be the most natural and easy and low stress appointments, just going into a home, doing an equity checkup, doing real estate, my real estate planning's part of it, home savings, home improvement, that's going to be the greatest challenge to get real estate agents to do for this reason. It's almost counterintuitive. Because the real estate industry, even though it's called real estate salespeople, have never been classic salespeople in the sense of making appointments.
Yeah.
Buyers basically actually reach out to the real estate industry more than they're reached out to. The home seller, because of the timing, is more likely to call an agent, "Can you come in?" than the real estate agent initiating the appointment.
Yeah.
So here's the thing I also say about the internet and this concept in AI. When I was CEO of Realtor.com, I used to have consultants come to me who were SEO consultants. And they'd talk about SEO. And I used to say, look, let me go to my computer right now. Let me put in your company and see where you come up in terms of CEO. Let's see if you come up on the first page. Oh my God, you're CEO consultants and you don't even come up? Why should I rely upon you? But that's my little joke, but that's a true story. But what did SEO stand for? What does it stand for? Search engine optimization. And so basically the industry has basically defaulted to becoming an industry that, because of technology in the digital world, that the public searches for, as opposed to using technology to seek out the public.
Yeah.
AI can change all of that, because if people become empowered by AI, they'll have the confidence to understand that they now have to evolve from the industry's obsession with listing properties, Rajeev, to listing people.
Yeah.
So you list people before you list properties, but you have to have value to meet with them in their home. So ironically, AI can bring out the humanity of real estate professionals more than anything in history, including the internet. Now, AI is helping SEO because it's giving it more help in terms of long form content. It's getting deeper into the analysis of content. It's helping people basically arrange their content to increase their SEO rankings. But that all is under the auspices of search. The industry has to evolve from a search culture to a seek culture, and AI can be the catalyst. I'm also the consultant to Reminder Media, which is a great publication that people can mail into the home with being on the front cover. I was the consultant to Chalk Digital. I think that's very helpful because it basically seeks out. It uses technology to seek, and so that I think will be a major shift, and that's going to be a big emphasis, is helping agents through emails, through text, through Zooms, to gain appointments in the home. Because once they gain the appointments in the home, it's going to completely change the economics of real estate. And if you'd like to know what I mean by that, I'm happy to respond.
Hang in there, Allan. I think there's a tech issue here. We're going to try to pause here. We get back and we can bridge it together. Hang tight.
Okay, great.
I think the audio came through. The video was what I couldn't.
Both of your video, you just can see.
Oh. Should I have him disconnect and join?
No, because it's just the iPad.
Oh, it's just the iPad. Okay. So you're still recording.
Yeah, the conversation's still going.
Okay. So, well, we're towards the end of it anyway, so we can finish up. Hang it. Is that what you recommend? Okay, there you go. Okay, we're back again. Okay, so you can clip all that stuff. So I think, Allan, we got all the audio you said. It was just that I couldn't see you, so we're good there.
Okay.
So let me ask this question around the final question before I get to the last two questions I'll ask all my guests. What would you say is the single biggest? Our listening audience, by the way, many of them are agents. Some are brokerage leaders who are also trying to figure out how does AI fit into me adding value to my agents who can add value to the clients like you talked about. So what is the single biggest organizational barrier, whether it's culture, technology, whatever, that would prevent brokerages from adopting AI meaningfully, and how can they overcome it?
Well, Rajeev, first of all, I want to salute the work that you're doing as an executive with leaders in organizations to create an AI business plan that you're helping so many companies do. I think the greatest impediment, or what could stultify our development the most, is the mindset. We still have a transactional mindset, but that's not a criticism because that's how we've all gotten paid.
Yeah.
So no one should ever be critical or condescending to a straight commission, transaction to transaction driven industry who have figured out what they think is the best way to create revenue for themselves and their companies. And so the mindset has to shift to this. I introduced something in the book, along with Anthony Lamacchia, called The New Math of Real Estate. Here's how it works. I ask realtors this question. What percentage of the time when you go on a listing appointment do you get the listing? Now, I saw one Zillow said 84%, but I usually hear from 70 to 95%. What does that tell us, Rajeev? The industry doesn't have a listing presentation problem. Now, we've spent 50 years in the greatest example of overkill with a solution in search of a problem that didn't exist, okay, in terms of how to make my super duper listing presentation. Okay, it's shameful, actually. And not to mention the fact that homeowners don't even want listing presentations. They want marketing proposals, and this isn't semantic. So the greatest challenge for companies, and this has to do with how they use AI, is getting more appointments.
Yeah.
Now, I ask people, when they get listing appointments, what percentage of their appointments come from their sphere of influence of personal referrals? And again, they'll say 70, 80, 90%. What that tells us is this. The number one lead gen system in the industry is the agent. Now, if you went to AI or Google right now and you said, tell me the top 5 lead gen systems, that will never come up. Why won't it come up? Because the agents can't be monetized if they come to that realization. So they're being monetized. So what that tells us is that if you get 80% of the listings you go on, and 90% come via personal referrals, that means you have to not only have a sphere of influence, you have to do more to influence your sphere. And then you have to evolve from just thinking of a sphere of influence to spheres of influence. I could have a sphere of influence of 200 people, but each of those 200 can have 200 people. That's 40,000 people. Now, no one's going to get 40,000 listings, but the question is, how can I influence the spheres of influence of my sphere of influence? And that can only be achieved by bringing greater value, and that greater value in the information age can only come from AI, that additive value, okay? So now let's talk about the math behind this. If I ask agents this question. Now, if somebody made $20,000 in a transaction and they had 10 appointments and they sold 8, that meant that they made $160,000 for listings. Oh my God, over 365 days, they met with 10 people. They advised 10 people in the home. Oh, busy man, busy woman. Imagine a doctor saying, yeah, I saw 10 patients last year. And that's why a lot of agents are wallowing in mediocrity, because they've been given the conventional math. The new math works like this. If you sat with 2 people a week to do in-home consultants with a credential, because they're not going to accept you doing this because they don't think that's what a salesperson does. We're going to provide the most prestigious credential in the industry, certified real estate consultant. Doesn't get any better. I own the URL, the website. It's locked and loaded. Now, the point is this. If you see 2 people a week, that's 100 people a year. Of those 100 people, only 10 are going to sell. So let's use honest math. Of those 10, how many listings? I'll get 8. If you make $20,000 a transaction, as they do in your main line, to say the least, that's $160,000 a year. Now, of those 10 people, how many do you think are going to end up buying? Well, 5. Say you get 4. That's another 80,000. Now, because you're going to influence their sphere of influence, how many referrals do you think you're going to get? They tell me, this is their math, not mine. In my classes with Anthony, I'm going to get 10 more. I'm going to get 20 more. Well, 20 more is 400,000 addition. Now, also, if you're meeting with them to go over home improvement, home savings, real estate planning, downsizing, investing, flipping real estate, how many more listings or referrals will you get from the vendors? Well, I get another 20, Allan. Well, that's another 400,000. That's the new math of real estate. And unless brokers, team leaders understand that the greatest gold, the greatest underserved market, that is no longer just buyers and sellers, there's homeowners. There's now 3 revenue intensive verticals. We have overkilled the listing presentation. The buyers were paying tariffs. That genie's under the bottle. The only way to go back and to remain viable and exponentially increase income is to do in-home consultations, but you've got to be trained. You've got to have the marketing resources. We have the guides, the planning guides, the 5-step in-home consultation, the training, the coaching, the brainstorming, the network. I believe that's the shift that's going to happen. And I'll say right this, Rajeev. I'm 76 years of age. I don't know how long I'll be on this industry, never mind in the world. Look at this. You're a younger guy. Look at this 5 or 10 or 15 years. I'm telling you right now, that's the only direction the industry can go in.
Well said.
That has to be the mindset shift.
Yeah. So the mindset is the big shift that brokerages and agent team leaders have to take on to really win in the age of AI. And AI will only be efficient. Yeah.
And by the way, and like I said, Rajiv, I'm probably the most limited person you'll ever have on your podcast because I'm a one-trick pony. Okay, I am just singularly focused on using AI to do in-home consultations.
And that's a big part. If you nail that, Alan, I call it the last mile. If you as an agent nail that and continue to have spheres of influence, your potential is endless, right? I mean,
Exactly,
that
because what you're bringing is you're bringing indispensable value, okay,
100%. Yeah.
to your clients. You're going to deputize them as lead gen sources,
Yeah.
okay? It's going to transform because the other dimension is this, Rajiv, and you know this because you're such a caring human being. There's a downside of AI, and that is the fact that it's led to even greater digital isolation,
Yeah.
mental health issues, books like Bowling Alone, because we have to get with each other. We have to preserve humanity, but it just can't be a popularity contest. It has to be humanity that's leveraging tremendous value, knowledge, and wisdom. And for example, I'll give you a great example. Let's just talk about home improvement. 95% of consumers do a home improvement. And you know, over the years, I've written a lot of guides: move, improve, or relocate, moving with children, moving with pets, so forth and so on. I've always been a content creator. But most real estate agents have more experience helping people make decisions on home improvement than anything else, but it's not being leveraged. There's there's millions of homeowners that are going through a process of trying to decide whether they should move, improve, or relocate, and they're not even bringing in the agent. What are they going to? They're going to go to AI. They're going to go to AI as opposed to having a triangular relationship between the agent, the client, and AI. In the same way that doctors now are using AI with themselves and the patient.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. And so I'm a one-trick pony. That's my Anthony's running an empire. He's also in our course as transactional consultant. We get into all of the ways to increase your sales ability. But my obsession goes back 30, 40 years ago to my real estate planning. I think we have to bring value added and be more strategic as an industry.
100%. 100%. Well said. I think we can end on that note. And I think for all the listening audience, we're going to put the links to Alan's books, his new course with Anthony in the show notes. But I'd like to ask you one question, Alan. I'd like to end with a question or two for all my guests. And that is, are you a book or a podcast person? Primarily.
I'm listening. I'm a listening to podcasts, but I'm writing a books. Okay.
So the question is this. If you had to, is there a book or a podcast that has influenced you the most than others? Is there something that you can recommend to the listeners and agents to read?
Well, the funny thing is this. We have a good friend who he raves about you, James Dwiggins. I know you
Yeah.
spoke at his conference, and he asked me that same question in his talk. What book has influenced me the most? And I think I surprised him in the two books. Okay, one was Joe Kennedy. It goes back many years, and I guess being from Boston, I have a bias. But how strategic he was in terms of his life. For example, he wanted his kids to go to Harvard, so he basically hired the head of admissions to be his family tutor. I mean, it doesn't get more strategic than that.
Yeah.
And he was a famous inside trader when insider trading was legal, and I could go on and on. But
Yeah.
what impressed me about him is all of the tragedies in his life, with deaths and so forth, and murders and assassinations, and his stroke and his daughter's mental issues. He was just relentless, and I think all of us have struggles in life, and it's good to have an example of somebody who can withstand that level of pressure. And my other great example of a mentor was Leonard Bernstein. And as I like to say, most time God only gives all of us, if we're lucky, one gift. He gave Leonard Bernstein three gifts: as a composer, as a pianist, and as a conductor. And he lived here in town. I live in Fairfield. And so I like getting really deep into biographies more than business books. But I love listening to podcasts because they're more extemporaneous. They're not, canned, or they're really authentic and human. And I think that anything we can do to bring back high levels of humanity, and that's why I've seen you in front of audiences locally and nationally, Rajeev, and you are so beloved because you've taken out the intimidation of AI. You've got a great sense of humor. You're very patient with the level of comprehension of the industry, and so I think that bodes well for our future when people can basically manifest high levels of caring for others and humanity and patience, and that's why people are so drawn to you.
Well, appreciate the kind words, Allan. This has been fun. I'm glad we got to do this finally. I know we've been going back and forth on dates, and I wish you nothing but great health in 2026 and continued success. And hopefully see
Thank you.
you in
Thank
real
you.
life real soon.
All my best. Thanks so much.
If you found value in this episode, follow the show so you're notified every Wednesday when new episodes drop. Share it with someone in the industry and leave us a review as it helps us reach more professionals like you.